This is Gail Morgan welcoming you to the Libertarian Counterpoint. Now, your host, James Just.
And thank you for joining me today. We have Richard and John, and friend of the show, Nickolas Wildstar, is back to talk about his campaign for governor. Nickolas, you are a continual campaigner, shall we say. How's this campaign for governor, this recall election campaign, been different than, say, the normal campaign for governor?
Well, this one is getting a lot more attention, that's for sure, than my previous campaign for governor. When I ran in 2018, I was widely ignored by the media. But this time around, I'm getting quite a lot of exposure. I just got an exclusive in Sacramento Bee, Fresno Bee, since I'm a Fresno local. I've also gotten an exclusive by KC, your Central Valley News, Newsweek, LA Times, the list goes on and on. So it's a lot more high profile, I would say, of a campaign. And I'm getting, of course, a lot more support from the people of the community because of that increased awareness. And hopefully that ends up translating to more votes come election day.
You're running on, I just got my ballot in the mail the other day, and you're running on the Republican byline as opposed to the Libertarian byline. What's up with that?
Running as a Ron Paul Republican. So I'm taking that message of libertarianism to a larger stage. That's the one thing about me running as a libertarian is, and speaking with the public, I was just pretty much disregarded simply because I was running as a third party candidate. Oh, it's a wasted vote, or you guys never win. And but this time around, I'm not getting any of that type of pushback whatsoever. The minute I say I'm running as a Republican candidate, you got my vote instantly, just like that. So there's less reluctance in getting support from the voters because of that tribalism. Unfortunately, it's just a matter of playing into that for the greater good. So if we want to have an opportunity to advance the principles of liberty, then we must adopt. And so I'm again pretty much what I would say bogarting and coming on the scene to inform more of the Republicans about why libertarianism would benefit them with them going through this identity change, you know?
Well, obviously, ideologically, you're a libertarian, and so ostensibly is Larry Elder, and then of course there's a libertarian candidate on the ballot, Jeff Hewitt. How do you feel about the libertarian vote being split three ways? I think we can all agree that Newsom needs to go, but what about splitting the libertarian vote?
Well, it's not a matter of splitting anybody's vote. I mean, we are all independent-minded voters, so when we go to vote, we should be voting and supporting the candidate that best represents our values and principles. We should always be voting that way, no matter what the person's political party affiliation may be. So there's people that feel that same way in the Republican Party, that feel like they need to all band, behind one candidate in order for them to win. But this is different than a primary election. You don't have to win by majority per se. So you don't have to feel so pressured to, again, all, band behind one candidate. This is a win by plurality with this special election. So voters of California will be asked two questions. One, would you like to recall Gavin Newsom? And two, who would you like to replace him with? So the candidate that gets the most votes on question two ends up becoming the next governor. And it's already been projected that could easily happen with, 1 to 2 million votes. So that, again, is the reason why more people should be focusing on what the candidates are offering to do and what their campaign proposals are, opposed to party affiliation. If you're voting just like that, then you're wasting your time and mine.
What are the issues that you're finding that resonate most with your voter base?
The government overreach, definitely, more than anything, especially with them promoting more mandates for masks due to the coronavirus crisis, or the mRNA injections, aka COVID vaccinations, as well as the passports and proof to go in and out of places. So that seems to be the biggest issue. A lot of people feel like that's the biggest infringement on their personal liberties, is just being forced to adhere to those requirements. So of course I'm against all of that, and as governor would ban any such requirement in the state. But also our economy as well. People are suffering economically, due to the job losses, due to the businesses closing, and et cetera. So I want to, of course, jumpstart our economy by making sure we keep our money in our pocket instead of letting government redistribute our money with stimulus packages as they've been doing now. So my goal is to cancel collection of all taxes for the next year for all income earners in the state. That way we can again get our economy going where it matters the most, and that's the working class people of the state.
To get our economy going is we're going to have to stop firing people for not getting vaccinated, right? We have a story here on in Houston is having a nurse shortage. Well, after they fired 150 nurses because they wouldn't get vaccinated. And here we're talking about these nurses who worked through the high rage of the pandemic, and now all of a sudden they're tossed aside because they chose not to get a shot. And yet now we're complaining because we don't have enough nurses and we don't have enough workers, or there's a worker shortage that people are complaining. Do you all realize the consequences of your decisions? I mean, it's like there's no long-term thought through these processes. You don't think that if we fire workers because they're not vaccinated, that we're not going to have enough workers to fill the job? Or that people, if we're going to require vaccine passports, people are going to stop going to restaurants, and then all these restaurants are going to close, and all these various issues. Does anybody think these things through, and how do we change that mindset?
Well, I'm a little bit torn on this one, because I think, quite frankly, if you own and run a business that you contract with the people that work for you, and it's like this thing, people want me to wear a mask to go in the coffee house. It's their business. They could ask that I wear a tutu to go into their coffee house. And if I didn't want to wear a tutu, I'd go to the coffee house that lets me wear my tights. Not that I wear either one, occasionally running tights. But, the idea that there are unintended consequences, but it's a business's right to create whatever relationship with its workers that it wants to have. And if it wants to have all of its workers vaccinated with COVID, then it pays the consequences of workers leaving that aren't vaccinated, and it attracts workers to its place of business who want to be in a 100% vaccinated environment. So I don't have a problem with it, and I don't understand why people get so upset when a business does something that a business should be able to do.
Well, it's because these businesses are having their arms twisted by the government mandates. The government mandated that these healthcare workers get vaccinated. It wasn't necessarily the business themselves. They're being pressured.
That I have a problem with. I have a problem with government mandates. I don't have a problem with businesses choosing to do that. And I guess Governor Gruesome, whatever silly name we want to call him, has decided that all healthcare workers in California need to be vaccinated. I tell you what, it's not going to happen. Because a while back I was chatting with one of my doctor buddies, and he said that they felt very, very good in his organization because 80% of the physicians had chosen to be vaccinated. I also know that a much lower percentage of nurses in that environment have chosen to be vaccinated. And in the state of California, the nurses union is, there's strong, and then there's Olympic strong. Well, there's nurses union strong above that. So the idea that you're going to fire in the state of California, 30,000 nurses and 10,000 health techs and 6,000 doctors for not getting vaccinated, not going to happen.
But the fact that they're imposing that mandate says that they don't care.
Yeah.
Gruesome is really, putting people's livelihoods on the line by saying that, hey, either you adhere to these new requirements or you're fired, essentially. And these people won't have an opportunity to collect any unemployment, any type of, assistance were they to lose their job. Of course, they lose access to any, severance packages or pension payments that they would have had received if they were to retire. So it's definitely a threat to people's chance to earn a living for themselves, and they should never have that be put over their heads by government officials, which is why, again, it needs to be banned from any public requirement and, any public place. Private businesses, like you said before, hey, that's your own business. And if you end up having to suffer job loss because of that, or, loss of income due to lawsuits, etc., then, you should have made better business decisions. But as far as the government is concerned and what their requirement for state employees, that definitely should not be a requirement, and we shouldn't be supportive of that at all.
Well said.
What I find that's really fascinating about this whole vaccination requirement thing is that up until a couple of days ago, none of the viruses had received full FDA approval. There was a provisional approval for Moderna, for several of them. And just a couple of days ago, Pfizer got its full approval. And it's been the progressives in the past who have argued that we need to prevent any medicine from coming on the market unless it receives full FDA approval. Now the progressives are arguing, or had been arguing, that, well, even though it doesn't have full FDA approval, you must get it. Now, I'm not a big fan of FDA approval in the first place. I think that making sure that it doesn't do any damage might have a place in public policy, but proving efficacy, that's a whole nother ballgame and very, very difficult to do because you got to prove a negative. I've gotten my 2 jabs online for the third, since I'm, in a place where, and of an age where I can get that 3rd jab fairly quickly. But as far as the hypocrisy of the progressives, on the one hand arguing that you have to have full approval before you can take a medicine, and now you must take a medicine even though it's not fully approved, is hypocritical, to say the least.
I'm enjoying it. The idea that anybody would think that the progressives are morally or logically consistent in any way, really, and these people can vote. I'm not talking about
that's scary.
Yes, and I'm talking about the people who give them validity, and there's nothing consistent about their logic or their argument. And I'm going to do this every time until you tell me to stop. Let's not call them progressives. What they want to do is regress to the centralized power that kings had, the power of star chambers, where the government elites are immune from everything and control every single part of life. How is that freaking progress? Let's think of another name for them. Let's just call them the idiots. And
I like regressives. That definitely is fitting.
they are regressive, if anything, not progressive. And I just hate it when we call them that. Like calling them liberals. You look up the term liberal.
Yeah, well, liberal, I mean, the word liberal has been compromised too. It used to be a good thing.
Yeah,
Classic.
no, they're more so illiberal.
Liberals came from the root word of liberty. And since when is the modern liberal, air quotes on all that, actually care squat about actual liberty? It's nothing. The my body, my choice crowd no longer cares about my body, my choice. It's kind of the concept that we kind of noticed.
You mind if I add something to what Richard said before we move on?
No, please.
About the FDA requirement, because this COVID vaccine, this shot, is being administered under emergency use authorization. But now, since the Pfizer shot has been approved, they can require it. And in the state of California, we already have laws under SB 276 and 277 that would, again, include this new approved Pfizer shot in those state requirements. So that's why, as governor, I would nullify SB 276 and 277. But go ahead.
Yeah, many of us fought those kind of overreach when they first caught it. It says, we're not dealing with polio here. It's not polio. It's it's just we've gone so far over the rail. But talking about going over the rails, we're going to move on here a little bit. The governor's office has been kind of caught playing with PG&E, shall we say. Here in town, the local TV station here in town has done an expose on the relationship between Governor Newsom and the PG&E and how much he got the PUC to run interference, and how they essentially, when the big fire a couple years ago that PG&E was responsible for, they essentially got them the bailout, and that was all done kind of behind the scenes. And the fact is, as we know, this corruption runs so deep.
Frozen.
How it works. Yes, that's the problem. That's the fact that this is how it works is the fundamental problem. How do we deal with these structural issues, Nickolas?
Well, it's interesting. The law firm hired by Newsom to write the legislation that exempts PG&E from being prosecuted because they have a fire certificate. The fire certificate says, "Oh, hey, we're doing everything right now," and so they can't be prosecuted for the crimes that they were prosecuted before and found guilty of killing, what was it, 84 people in a fire a year or two ago. They can't be prosecuted on those kinds of things in the future. It's sort of like the vaccine makers. They can't be held liable if their vaccine screws up, if it has bad side effects. Now, PG&E can't be held liable if, the spark caused a fire from our transmitter or whatever, or our transformer. It's the large, well-protected, well-lobbied, well-lawyered up large corporations that don't have to worry about liability, while all of the rest of us do have to worry about liability for bad actions. They're protected. And coincidentally, PG&E was one of Newsom's very large campaign contributors. How about that?
I'm sure that's just a coincidence. But what's even worse is some of the skullduggery behind the scenes. The head of the PUC, I believe, at the time, who's no longer there, fired for something or other, was told to sign the certificate, and in hindsight said, I shouldn't have signed it, even being told to. That the findings on the part of the commission did not agree with issuing the certificate. Basically, the governor's office put it down in front of her and said, "You will sign this." So, and I'm sure it's all just a coincidence that there are other major government-sponsored monopolies that haven't contributed to. Oh wait, no, there aren't. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Anyway,
how about this coincidence with the French Laundry dinner? That PG&E executive and his friends at that law firm were attendees at, as well as Poseidon Water executives and Perkin Elmer executives. That's the company that was cherry picked to handle these vaccination centers. So there's a lot of lobbying going on by Gavin Newsom and the people in Sacramento, and the legislators are also included in that. I think when we talk about accountability, we not only need to look at Newsom as being, of course, someone that was involved, but all of those legislators that gave it the green light. And Kevin Kiley is one of them. He's running for governor, and he's an assembly member that signed off on that bill, AB 1054, which gives out those safety certificates to PG&E. So when we talk about bad actors involved, we, the people, need to go down the list of holding every responsible individual accountable for their actions. And we shouldn't be giving them the simply the benefit of the doubt because of their celebrity or because of their position or connection or status or whatever the case may be. It's a matter of rooting out those special relationships that have, again, defrauded the people of California and put us in an even worse situation if we had a responsible government.
Yeah, the Eisenhower warned about the military industrial complex, but what we're finding out is that industrial complex exists at all levels of government, whether it's the PUC, whether it's the homeless issues, the grift. Some call it you can call it the grifting game, you can call it the industrial complex. It doesn't matter. There's a lot of people making a lot of money on all these government programs, and except the people they're supposed to help.
Right.
It's, we have all these government programs that are supposed to help people, but everybody but the recipient is actually the ones getting help. What was it?
In addition to military, add education, add healthcare, add, in this case, public electrical utilities and gas utilities. There's and really any large corporation, just about, can be added to the list of people who have a cozy relationship with governor. I think it's really instructive that Jeff Bezos is suing the federal government to get the space contract that Elon Musk won fair and square, simply because he doesn't like the outcome. And he is a bigger contributor.
$1 billion because of it. And, and then used it to go to space on our dime. Why are we shareholders in his company? Since we bailed him out, we should be part owners in that company.
Well, to be fair, we didn't bail out Amazon, but yeah, the principle.
Right, where's our money?
I mean, Elon's been making hay with government.
He gets plenty of his own subsidies too. Yeah.
All these guys complaining.
Yeah, he's brilliant at getting taxpayers.
Got go to NASA, and that's still the problem.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, did we freeze up on somebody?
No, we're waiting for you to moderate there, James.
Oh, no, sorry. I thought everybody kind of froze up there for a second.
I mean, I could go on. I'm sure.
No. We'll move on to some fires. I'm sitting here breathing in some fire smoke, and we find out that Governor Newsom, we're back to Governor Newsom misleading the public about all the issues he did with fires. I mean, we covered this a few weeks back, but now that you're here, we want to cover this. How do you actually deal with this kind of issue where we have a governor and his staff and, the bureaucratic mechanisms underneath them that encourage or even allow this type of malfeasance where you can sit here and he can go up and sit there and say, yeah, we've accomplished all this, $6 million or whatever he says he spent, but he actually only spent a fraction of it, and they didn't even spend it on anything that's useful. So how do we actually start spending money usefully and actually holding people accountable? How do we get that transparency?
Regardless of who you're going to vote for in the recall to be governor, absolutely we should vote to get Newsom the hell out of the governor's chair. That's a start. One of the interesting things is the California progressives, or as regressives, as John likes to call them, but back in the early 1900s, they actually were progressives. They put on the ballot, made it possible for Californians to recall and also petition for getting stuff on the ballot as a referendum. So the referendum and the recall, very progressive in the true sense of the word, actions. And now the so-called progressives of today, the regressives of today, are complaining about the progressive recall. We need to embrace actual progressivism and recall Governor Newsom and vote for Nickolas, vote for Jeff, vote for Larry, whoever you prefer, but vote for somebody to get, but first of all, vote yes on the recall.
Right. And I second that. And one of the benefits of parliamentary and elections is you can vote no confidence. The people can vote no confidence in their leadership, and they have to declare a new election. Now, in this country with all the strife, it might be a good idea. I was thinking it was a bad idea because we'd constantly be having elections. But maybe if we did that, it would keep them away from their desks where they can spend these exorbitant amounts of money padding the pockets of their friends. So, that's one piece of the English style of government that I do like. This is basically a vote of no confidence in current leadership. And I do love that and support it. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
across the board, the people of California will vote to get them out. I actually got an email from a concerned voter sharing that that ABC expose, saying that she was a Democrat and a Newsom supporter in 2018, and she will be voting yes on the recall, a hard yes. And once more people pay attention to his failures, especially with the wildfires, I mean, since that also pours into other issues like with the drought and, the water shortages and, of course, government failures altogether, because he does have a responsibility, and he just didn't do his job. So first and foremost, we need somebody in there that's going to do their job and be honest with the people, not say that, so much money was spent and then only find out a fraction of it was spent, or say 90,000 acres was, managed and only 12,000 acres were managed. Things like that, or expanding government, like what he did with the Cal Fire when he first got elected to supposedly deal with wildfires, but yet there hasn't been any type of a control over the issue. So it's a lack of leadership, definitely.
Gavin Newsom is a clear and present danger, not just to California, but to the entire country. I was in Colorado a couple of weeks ago, up in the mountains. In Colorado, the state of Colorado issued a bad air warning. Why? California wildfire smoke had drifted as far as Colorado.
Mm.
And that's if you drill down on the numbers, Gavin got a couple $2 billion to fight fires, and instead of spending the money on fire prevention, thinning forests, controlled burns, and all the rest of that, which he actually did less of than back in I think the Brown administration, less this year and last year, despite the fact that we knew we were going to have horrible droughts. What he did was spend it beefing up employees in CAL FIRE. Why? Because employees in CAL FIRE pay union dues that goes to support who? Him. So, the more public employees that there are with those big fat pensions and the big fat paychecks, the bigger the union dues, they go directly into his pocket.
Exactly. And that's why that relationship between government officials and the special interest groups like the unions and lobbyists and pharmaceutical companies, or whatever the case may be, needs to be separated. There's actually a piece of legislation called the Anti-Corruption Act that was created by a bunch of constitutional scholars and professors, etc., that I plan on signing into law once I'm elected governor, to separate that big money interest over politics. But with regards to addressing wildfires, we definitely need to expand those control burn practices, like what John was bringing up, and also to basically allow community logging as well. People coming in, being responsible, in cleaning up the forest lands that are have experience in doing such a thing. You have independent logging companies that would love to have access to some of those forest lands, but because money plays another another interest in it, they want to make sure that wood isn't being used to make money for those businesses. But if anything, that's what we should be promoting in government, is more job opportunities, more ways for the people to create an income for themselves just off of the natural resources that are available to us all.
And with that, we have got to go. We are out of time. Thank you, Nickolas, for joining us. We got to thank you all for joining us from Team Counterpoint here. Thank you, and please remember to love everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.